Welcome to my podcast, Ruella Talks Recruitment. In this episode, I was very fortunate to be able to chat to Greg Savage. Greg, for those of you who are not familiar with his name, has had a career spanning 4 decades in recruitment. He's the founder of 4 highly successful recruitment businesses, a trusted advisor, and a respected voice across the international recruitment community. He's also the author of the best-selling book, The Savage Truth, and also has a blog with the same name. He has many more accolades, but right now, we'll let Greg do the talking. I hope you enjoy this episode. Greg, thank you so much for being a guest on our podcast today. I know you have done a lot of podcasts and webinars and all sorts over COVID, so I do really appreciate you being with us today. I'm sure you've had time to reflect on some of the common mistakes that you have seen recruitment leaders execute over the last 12 months. What have you seen in your world? I'm sure I've seen a few myself, but I'd just be interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure. Well, yeah, nice to be here, Ruella. Thank you for having me on your world famous, soon to be top rating podcast.
Thank you.
It's a great pleasure. Let's remind ourselves that this downturn, this COVID downturn, was unlike anything else we've seen in terms of recessions and downturns, but mostly because of the speed at which it happened. And the fact there were aspects to it that were things that none of us had seen before. I've been through plenty of recessions, and that helped when I was advising my clients, but never where we were locked down at home and we couldn't come into the office, and all the things that you're still dealing with, right? So let's go a little bit easy on the owners and managers. But on the other hand, I am on the board of 13, maybe it's even 14 recruitment companies. That's what I do every day. So I was on the inside of the kind of war room, for want of a better word, the bunker of that many companies. And also people from all over the world really, Ruella, were also asking for, I think everyone was pretty shocked. So I did see a few things close up, and I was able to avert a few disasters to the people close to home, which was good. Not because I'm clever, but just because I have been in downturns before. As I say, not quite like this one. But the first thing is the reactions that we saw, Ruella, from owners and managers was one of profound shock. You know, in about March last year in our country, similar for you, when suddenly we realized this was really happening, and government started closing down schools and offices, and we were sent home and all that kind of stuff. And we realized, and our revenues dropped pretty much 50, 60% in many cases. And it was a profound shock. And I related to I think it's called the 5 stages of grief. You know, in the human condition, they say if people have a tremendously traumatic event in their lives, they go through 5 stages, and it includes denial and anger. And in the end, they get to acceptance. Now, you've asked me a question, what was the biggest mistake? I think the biggest mistake was that so many owners never got to acceptance quick enough. And when I say acceptance, I don't mean resignation. I mean accepting this is the reality, and we must now behave according to this new reality. There were people in denial for ages. I remember calling one of my big clients, in fact, the company I founded, I'm just on the board now, I sold my shares to the MD, and I said to him, mate, you have got to do something. And he's like, well, we'll wait until April, and then in June we'll act. I said, you wait then, you'll lose your company and your house. That got his attention, I have to say. And by Friday, we had acted in a dramatic way. And it was quite interesting. That included, sadly, the loss of some people. And I remember him saying to me on the Friday night, it was very traumatic, I think we've cut too deep. The following Wednesday, he was saying we haven't cut deep enough, right? Because of course it was so dynamic in the sense of the volatility. So I think the biggest mistake people made was a slow response time, and some people hanging in the various stages, denial. Others in grief literally couldn't act out of shock. Now, I don't say this lightly, but I had grown men and women, obviously grown, their 30s, 40s, and beyond, crying in shock and despair, So that is not an environment, that's not an emotional environment where it's very easy for people to make decisions, I understand. But if you're a leader, you have to. So that was the first thing. So I think acting too slow was a problem. I think, one of the challenging things, and you being a recruitment to recruitment company would know this better than most, the only real asset we've got is people, and certainly the only cost on our P&L that's of any significance, apart from maybe our rent, which a lot of people no longer have, is salaries. And so cutting people, reducing headcount was inevitable, even though governments in your country and mine acted quite quickly to put supports in place, and thank goodness they did. It was still true that they had to let people go, and a big mistake was in many cases letting the wrong people go. Now you must say how university, they let people go with under a year's experience, which makes sense superficially, but actually if we'd been able to look ahead and realize that, and this is a question you're going to ask me later, I'm sure, but the skills now needed as we come out of COVID, they are relationship building skills. They're not the transactional mud against the wall sort of speed tactics that plenty of people in recruitment were executing quite successfully and making quite a lot of money. But they are now floundering, those people, and leaving the industry because it's no longer the skills required. Couple more points. You asked me what mistakes, and I won't spend a lot of time on this because it'll be better to talk about the lessons and the good things. We will. But not enough support for consultants in the right areas. And this is going to sound a little bit weird. No, it won't, but it's going to sound paradoxical. Some owners and managers were being too empathetic without enough focus on outcome. Now, don't get me wrong. We needed empathy. We needed kindness for our staff and for each other. We needed patience, and we needed support. But one of my clients said to his staff after they're all locked down and week after week, he said, "Look, guys, I know it's tough. Just do your best." And I hauled him over the coals. I said to him, "What kind of advice is that, really? When you think about it, if someone's going to run out to the Rugby World Cup final, and he says to his coach, 'What shall I do?' and his coach says, 'Do your best.' I mean, how helpful is that? I mean, he's going to do his best, or she's going to do her best. There's no question. What they need is greater clarity about what a good day looks like. I can't make placements. I can't speak to half my clients. I've got 1,000 candidates on the phone. What do I do from 9 to 5 tomorrow night? That will be a useful day's work." That's what was needed. Yes, empathy, but also outcomes. And a lot of managers went at either end of that spectrum. Too much empathy, do your best, fucking hopeless help from the boss, frankly. And B, on the other side, KPIs, give me dollars, why aren't you billing? That's unhelpful in an environment where people are literally ripped out of their work environment, put at home, sometimes in difficult circumstances with children and parents and things happening, or maybe 4 young people flatting in a 3-bedroom place in Bayswater, and now they've got to all work at home. That's not easy, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
A lot of stress. And then they had a boss saying, "Well, where's the dollars? Why aren't you doing this?" That was the other end of the spectrum. So these were mistakes. And the final one, which because there's hundreds, of course, but I think a big mistake that a lot of people haven't made, but a lot are making, is they're not using COVID. And we'll see the flip side of this when you ask me later on what the benefits of COVID were. Strange to use the word benefits and COVID in the same sentence, but
yes.
Is a lot of people have not used this time to reinvent their business, to slaughter sacred cows, to say to themselves, the big question is that we should be asking about everything in our business is, why do we do it this way? And if we haven't got a really, really good answer, we should think of a new way to do it. And that's everything. The way we, I can go on to this later, but our fees, our processes, type of people we hire, the technology we use.
One of the greatest learnings that you've witnessed since March last year from people that you've been working with?
Well, look, there were a lot of things that people found out about themselves during that period as leaders. I mean, as human beings too, but let's not get too, off topic. But certainly as leaders, a lot of people in leadership were shocked at which of their staff stood up and behaved magnificently in that time.
Yeah.
And we're sometimes equally disappointed with others that they expected to perhaps have stepped forward in a more positive way. So I think that one of the big learnings is about ourselves. I've seen some owners take wonderful opportunity to reinvent the businesses, but many others, and I think this will happen in your country too, they're so grateful when the market comes back, they'll go back, Ruella, and do everything exactly the same as they've always done it before. And that will be a tremendously missed opportunity. So onto some specifics. I touched on this. Transactional recruiting, that resume racing, dumbing down of our industry where it was almost all done digitally and there was no real consulting at all. I think a lot of people have learned that actually clients and candidates definitely, but clients are looking for something different, something better, something more personal, something, a better service level, a more consultative level. And so one of the big learnings I'm seeing from my clients is that they are training and hiring people who can move from transactional to relationship building to consultative. And when I say consultative, I mean selling retainers, working exclusively. I mean better questioning skills, better listening skills, getting in front of clients more often. And here's an irony, which you can steal and use if you like. Even as recruitment has become more remote, and it has, because all your interviews and your client work is done like this, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It might be into the future. Even though it's got more remote, we actually need to get more engaged. We need to work harder to ask the questions, to challenge the assumptions, to counter offer potential, things that a good recruiter has always done, but transactional recruiters stopped doing, and now without even doing interviews face to face, it gets more shallow potentially. Yeah. So that's a big learning, right? That we've got to get much more with both clients and candidates.
So more thorough, more detailed.
More thorough, more detailed. Assumptions, making assumptions. If you think of things that go wrong in recruitment, almost always they stem from us making assumptions. Oh my God, I had 3 people on third interview, but a 4th person from shit kicker personnel got the job. Well, that's because you didn't check in that was a possibility, right? Yeah. You could have got a 4th guy. Yeah, all those sorts of things. So that's a big learning. The other big learning, which of course people like me, especially me, have been preaching for so long, is people got seduced by permanent only recruitment companies, which you probably are. And for you, it's a little difficult to build contract revenue. But in many cases you can. But permanent recruitment is so seductive, right? Because the fees are so high and the cost of delivery is so low. And as this market picks up, I predict that a lot of people will go back and do perm only. And then when the next recession comes, they'll get screwed again and go out of business. So building an annuity revenue, a good contract. And, people, it's quite interesting. So I gave my client this lecture and I said, yeah. So when I went to his board meeting and he presented his plan, there was his plan. Everyone's in a hiring frenzy now, hiring recruiters. It's going to happen in your country. I think it already is, but it will happen more. Yeah. So, because everyone's gearing up for the big push, right? So he comes with his plan and we agreed we're going to drive into temp, and his plan is to hire six permanent recruiters and 1 temp recruiter. And I'm like, well, what about our plan? Oh, but it takes ages to build up a temp. I said, I know. That's the whole point. You've got to make the investment. So, we changed the plan and we're going to hire 3 contract recruiters. And because you've got to actually allocate the resources to build, a lot of people build a temp desk as an afterthought to a perm desk. And actually it should be I've got nothing against perm. I love it, but it's a very unfaithful lover, Ruella, perm, very unfaithful. She will disappear.
Highs and lows.
She will disappear at the drop of a hat, right? Whereas temp is more sticky. So I think that's the lesson. I think in terms of technology, what I'm seeing smart people do is spend money on technology now to automate the parts of the job that should be automated, the hack work. And they're doing that to make it more efficient and all the rest of it, but also to free up their recruiters to spend more time on the relationship building and the face-to-face thing that I'm talking about. So that's a great learning. And the other thing that they're doing, and this would be something that your people should be doing now, is building talent pipelines. The smart people have realized that the definition of a candidate has changed. And what I mean by that is Most recruiters define a candidate as someone who's looking for a change of job. That's not a candidate. A candidate, that is a candidate, but actually a candidate is anyone who has the skills that your client will hire. Whether they're looking for a job now or tomorrow is just a matter of timing. They're going to be. Just about everybody you meet anywhere is going to change jobs. So why wouldn't you, if you're placing .NET developers, anybody who's got that skill, whether they're looking or not, should be in your pipeline. You should be building relationships. And that is a learning, because most of us in recruitment, including me, are very short-term focused, right? We've got to take a longer-term view. Many things. Collect your cash. I think we've got to be really careful about doing business with zombie companies that are going to go bust. With 8 of our temps working there, that can send you bust. Collect your cash. I won't get on things you shouldn't do. I think we're going to come to that later. But I think building the candidate pipeline. And the other thing is more measurement of activities, not less. This is the big mistake, a big learning.
Okay.
Like my client, the client on one end of the spectrum who says, just do your best. I'm sitting at home. I'm completely in shock. I don't know what to do. Got no colleagues to lean on. I've got a baby crying in the background, whatever. And now you say, do your best. What is good look like? So actually, great leadership now is many things. We can talk about that too, if you like. But one of it is helping your recruiters understand what the activities are that are going to lead to success in this environment. And even what a successful week looks like. It might just mean a lot of conversations and no placements. Because mark my words, if it's not happened already, and this is one thing we've noticed, I'll give your guys in the UK a heads up. So we got through COVID, everyone held on to well, we're not through COVID, but you know what I mean. We got through the worst, I think. And everyone held on to their jobs. And then we come back to the office, and experienced recruiters, the ones that the owners have got in a box of, they're here for life. They've been here 5 years. They love us. We love them. They're well paid. They're well looked after. We have a history. They're resigning. That's the group who's resigning. And it's right across the board. Just about every company I'm on the board of has had at least one person do that. And what are they resigning to do? COVID has given them the chance to really examine their priorities in life. They're going to live in country. They're going to live in country towns, right? Where they can bring the kids. Some of them will work remotely in recruitment. Others are going to do something else. They're going in-house to internal, who are now hiring in droves, having fired too many of their people prior to COVID. And these are just some of the things that are happening. So I think that's a big learning. You should get. While you're so busy, what you should say to your clients, well, maybe you've got mixed incentives, but you should be saying to your clients, yes, I will help you recruit. But in the meantime, don't take anyone for granted and think they're going to, they're not probably going to go and walk across the road to do the same job in another recruitment agency, but they are reevaluating whether this, they have been hurt by what's happened in recruitment. They've been given a real reality check. Is this a real, part of the job of leadership is to rebuild the belief in our industry for people. Yeah. Is it really a job that's going to be here? It's been a nightmare. I know it's been a nightmare for everyone in the country.
We've lost thousands of recruiters in the UK.
Thousands. 36% in Australia lost their jobs in April, May, and June last year.
France, it's huge.
And most of them were with under 1 year's experience. And they see that as a direct, you'll get this. Companies fired all their junior trainee type recruiters. Those people went back to being accountants or whatever they were before, and they're not coming back to recruitment. So, and today, that happened a year ago, and they had a year's experience. Today, they'd be 2 years experience in a normal world. They'd be the prime person for their first career move in recruitment, right? People that you give blood to try and find, otherwise 2 years experience looking for their move, right? Now, that generation has been COVIDed. So, and in this country, we've also got the fact we always get a lot of UK recruiters coming here. I'm sure we get a lot of Aussies going there too. But we get heaps of UK recruiters coming here for 2-3 years. None of them, because they can't come. Plus, a lot of people are going in-house. And a lot of people are setting up, that's the other thing that you'll see, a lot of people will go and set up businesses on their own because they're working from home already.
Exactly.
And suddenly they're looking around going, what do I get from this company again? And I'm billing quite nicely and I've got my clients. I'll just do it on my own. So there'll be a lot of that. So anyway, I've got way off the topic. But,
no, it's fine.
It's
fine.
All learning.
Really great. In fact, I just want to throw in a quick question, which is, what are your thoughts on people working from home versus working in an office? It's often being debated here. I'm part of the Elite Leaders group, and it's something that comes up a lot. I'd love to hear your personal view on that particular subject.
That is a great question, and I will tell you my point of view, and it's not the same as a lot of people's. I'll tell you 2 stories. I'll tell you 3 stories that speak to this. It'll be very, very useful. Number one is I used to be the CEO, international CEO of a company called Aquent, A-Q-U-E-N-T.
Yeah, we worked with you. We placed with you. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Right. In London.
Yeah.
Well, I was, I was with that company 10 years. Our office at that time was on the corner of Oxford Street and Tottenham Court Road, just above Freddie Mercury.
They were stunning.
Yeah. Anyway, we had 40, 50 people in London. We had Manchester. I had 35 offices around the world. It was a big job. But the point of my story is the CEO of that company now, who is the founder and the owner in the US, John Schwung, he stated recently, and I don't agree with him on this, but it's very interesting. He's a very smart guy. He might be right. He says he's got 50, 60 offices around the world. He said trying to get people to go back to work after COVID, and this was his phrase, is like trying to unring a bell. It's too late. It's happened. That's his point of view. So he says we're going to negotiate out of all our leases. We're going to be remote across the world. And he gave some number. We're going to save $10 million a year and people will be happy. That's his view. Okay. That's what he said. I read the article. I don't, he's a good guy, but I don't speak, it's 10 years ago that I worked there. I don't speak to him every day or anything like that. I just read it. On the same week that I read that, I went to go and see one of my clients in Sydney called E4, healthcare company. I walked in there. They've got about 25 recruiters, and blow me down, there were 25 recruiters in the office. And there was a buzz. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The noise. Would you like a coffee? Jokes. Candidates being talked about. Dogs in the office. Fuck, I hate that, but that's another story. It was buzzing. And I immediately got energized because I hadn't seen it for a while. So I said to the CEO, I said, what's happening? Is it a special day? He said, no. He said, we don't kind of believe in work from home. And our people don't want it. Yeah, we've got flexibility and they have one day from home here and there. And maybe we have one day a week. But mostly we're here all the time. And we love it that way. So there's 2 very distinct points of view.
Yeah.
The third story is this, people to people. I don't mind telling you, there's no secret of these things. It's all good. It's good to learn. People to people, company in Sydney, maybe 35 recruiters, all over Australia actually, 35 office to people in Sydney. Devastated by COVID, but they kept most of their staff. Then it turned out that in December last year, our lease was up. Now the lease was for a whole floor in a building. We were spending a lot of money on it, and the debate raged. Work from home, said some people on the board.
Yeah.
We don't need an office. We can save $500,000 a year and the people will be happy, said one group. No, said another group. We need the office. The heartbeat of the agency is people being together. And all the reasons which I can enlarge on as to why it won't work 100% from home for most agencies. And then there was the other group was like, less space, or let's go to WeWork so people have a home or whatever it was. In the end, what they decided to do is keep the whole space. But what they also did is they sent everyone home for 3 months and they gutted it. It was a very traditional office. It looked like Great Castle Street in London in 1980. Bit better than that, it had, rows of.
That was when you worked
rooms.
for Hayes, is that right?
Well, it wasn't called Hayes then. It was before Hayes bought it. It was called Accountancy Personnel.
Just give everyone a context of what that office might have looked like.
Yeah. Well, it was just kind of, and it was within their 10 years, so the walls were dirty. It was a bit shabby.
Yeah.
The kitchen, there wasn't really a kitchen. It was just it was not great, but people were used to it. So stripped, replaced by no reception. You walk in and you are in a coffee shop. I'm serious.
Wow,
I'm going to do a blog on it and film it, right? A coffee shop, 4 or 5 tables, booze like from those American diners that you can sort of slide into. A kitchen bar, right? So if anyone comes in, there's food and drink. There's no actual wall between that and where the consultants are. It's an open common area, and then it's big. So, and the consultants are around the corner, but it's totally hot desking, right? There's beautiful technology. You plug in, you enter your codes and up comes your stuff, or you use a laptop. You've got a locker. There are 5 Zoom rooms, which are really comfortable and soundproof. There's a podcast room. So if you were there, you'd be doing your podcast in that room.
Yeah, sounds
and
wonderful.
There's one magnificent boardroom and 2 or 3 interview rooms. So I do have them. And lots of breakout areas, lots of technology on the wall, putting up people's results. And the ethos there was, we are going to give people the opportunity to work hybrid, home and here, but we're going to make it so cool that they're going to want to come here.
Yeah.
Because we think the heartbeat of the agency depends on people to get together. And I do believe, I think, Sydney's big like London, right? And if you're traveling 90 minutes or 2 hours into the city and 2 hours back, well, and you're an experienced recruiter who knows, who's on top of her game, yeah, I'm sure she can work 2 days or 3 days, but there's the flip side. How are we going to get the learning from that person? You know, you've been around a long time, and so I still say things today that I heard in a recruitment office 30 years ago. I claim it as my own now, but I stole it from somebody else. I learned from my boss, but I learned from the people around me. And I just fear for a generation of 6 months, 1 year recruiters who are sent home and told you're going to work from home. They will not make it. They will not make it. So I think it's long story. It's hybrid. But there's not just about, you know, if somebody says to me, but I can work more effectively at home, well, that's only half the story. It's can the company work as effectively if you're always at home? Because we need your knowledge. We need your ethos. You were given it, and now we need it from you. That's the bargain that we've made with each other, right? Even though people don't often think that way, but I think it's true. I think one of the best things that came out of this is a lot of owners have realized they can trust their staff. They don't need to look over their shoulders. So that's been good, and it's a maturation of our industry. But I don't think full-on working from home is a conducive way to build a collaborative business where the DNA of the business is passed on, and also performance managing someone who's not in the office is an extremely difficult thing to do.
So this moves me on to your book, The Savage Truth. For anyone, you need to, the sun is such a bad angle here, but great book. It's kind of the playbook, I think, for the recruitment industry. But you reference the DNA of a successful recruiter in your book as having resilience and a strong mindset, amongst other things. What qualities do we need to recruit right now, or what qualities should our recruiters have to be able to navigate and future-proof themselves moving forward as we come out of this period? Because for us, it feels like a big bounce is coming. It hasn't already hit some of our clients.
First of all, let's start with resilience. That's always been something highly prized in recruitment, but it's misunderstood, Ruella. People talk about resilience as though it means some kind of toughness and reserve and a shield and some sort of macho behavior, as though it's like damping your feelings down and relentlessly facing forward. That is not sustainable. I actually think that in recruitment, I love emotion. I'm an emotional guy, and the highs of recruitment are so high and the lows are so low that to me, it doesn't make sense to just bottle it up. And I think that's totally destructive. I think I'm all for people. It's always okay in my company to cry, hit your head against the wall, swear. That was my go-to thing. Go for a few beers or go to the gym. That's all good stress release, and it's fine. It's not weak. In fact, it's weak not to care, because it's a human business. So I think showing your emotions means you do care, and I love it, and it's fine, and it's good, and it's cathartic, and it's healthy. What resilience means is bounce back. So you've had 2 offers turned down, a candidate was rude to you, and 3 jobs fell over. Have a cry, whatever it is. But the next conversation with client, candidate, or colleague, they never know about it. You go forward with the same energy, the same optimism, the same positivity. That is resilience. Because most recruiters, not most, that's not true, but a lot of recruiters carry forward what I call wasted emotion. You've heard it, I've heard it. 2 weeks later, the guy's still saying, oh, woe is me, I had 2 offers turned down, I bet. You know, like, I'm like, fuck, mate, shut the fuck up. Get over it. I don't care about your offers too. Here's the thing, here's a person, a great candidate, here's a client. That's resilience. right?
Yeah.
That is what resilience is. So
I'm good at moving on. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you have to, it's because the one thing I say to anybody is I promise you, whatever's just happened to you, it's going to happen again.
Yeah.
So put that in the category of this is part of your job. So bounce back is the thing we need to look for. The second thing that I'd look for is true evidence of the ability to be consultative, right? Or have the potential. So remember I said we've got to move from transactional to relationship building to consultative. And so what do you mean by consultative? Consultative means asking questions, listening skills, advising, counseling, coaching, and I mean clients as well as candidates. And to do that, you've got to have credibility, right? So you need people who are credible. And so while I was a 21-year-old hired with no experience to be a recruitment consultant, and I've hired many, and I'm not saying you shouldn't, I think we should look at other areas as well. We should look for people who've got experience that is transferable. Negotiating skills, presenting skills, business commercial skills. So that is all summed up in the phrase influencing skills. We want recruiters who have influencing skills because recruitment is going to, the transactional part of recruitment is going to be automated. And we don't need recruiters screening 400 people off a job board. We just don't need that. We need recruiters or people typing for ages into a database. So that soon we're going to be able to talk into our databases. It'll be voice recognition, all that stuff. So we need recruiters who can be influential in the moments of truth, Ruella, in recruitment. The moments of truth are those parts of recruitment, steps, instances, scenarios where the recruiter has the chance to influence the outcome. Right? So taking a job order, briefing a candidate on a job, debriefing a candidate after a job, presenting a shortlist to a client, making an offer to a candidate. These are all moments of truth. So you and me were sitting at a desk. You try to persuade your candidate to go to a job interview on an email. I'll talk to him over a cup of coffee, and I'll bet you a lot of money I will win. Not because I'm better, but I can do it influentially, face-to-face or over the telephone. So those are the moments of truth. And it's very old school in one sense, except it's almost new school now, because so many recruiters have got so transactional. So I'd be looking for that. I'd be looking for people from what I call Generation C. You know how they talk about all these generations?
Yes.
I'm a baby boomer. You're almost a baby boomer. And then they've got all that. And they ascribe characteristics to these generations, which, by the way, are largely bullshit. It's so annoying. Baby boomers are the worst. They then define how millennials and these other people act, and then those generations act to meet the expectations of the idiotic baby boomers who describe them. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. In these companies I work with, a lot of 25 to 35 years old, they are the hardest working, most loyal, most dedicated people I've worked with my whole career. It's just not true. Technology's changed the way that people have behaved, but it actually hasn't changed the core of it. I'm getting on my hobby horse. I'll get off it. Generation C is nothing to do with the date you're born. Generation C means the connected generation. So I think we need to be deeper into verticals. I think we need to get, and therefore hiring people who know a lot of people in a sector and who know people who know people. I'm not saying that makes them a good recruiter, but that's a great background, right? So if you're placing UX designers in jobs, somebody who was the chairman of the UX Society for 3 years might be the perfect person to be your next recruiter, right? If everything else stacks up. So resilience, relationship building skills, influencing skills, empathy. True empathy is not on the job spec of most recruiters. It should be, because that's how you're going to build candidate trust. Listening skills, questioning skills, and the ability to architect the deal. Architecting the deal, I use that word on purpose because the word architect means to design and construct and to shape, right? And that's what the recruiter's job is. Shape. No, Mr. Client, I know you have a process that means we've got to have 15 interviews before you make an offer. I know you want to be thorough, but you will never hire somebody that way. Can we shorten it? Can we double up? And that is shaping the deal. Right? That's consultative. And that takes credibility, it takes influencing skills. And that is the sort of recruiter we should be hiring, or with potential.
Are there any dangers that we should look out for in this recovery?
So I think the biggest danger is the one I talked about before, is that people go back and do everything the way they've done it before and not take the opportunity to be innovative. And innovation is a scary word. People say, hey, I can't invent Facebook for recruiting. I'm not asking you to do that. I'm asking you to make changes incrementally. That is innovative in itself. 5% better, 5% different every month. Why do we do it this way? Let's change it. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I think is a big danger is you touched on it. They're going to be overwhelmed with jobs. And most recruiters are like gluttons. They can't choose off the menu. They've got to eat the whole menu. And that's your biggest mistake. You don't want, I was sitting in a training session with a company the other day, and this guy said to me, Greg, how can I get more jobs? I said to him, how many jobs do you handle on average per month? He's in healthcare recruitment. He said 20. I said, how many jobs do you fill a month? He said 3. I said, mate, you don't need any more jobs. You need fewer, better jobs. You don't want 25 jobs to fill 4. You want 10 great jobs to fill 8. Exclusive jobs, well-qualified jobs. And that's the biggest danger. We try to be all things to all people. Work out what market you're in. Yes, you can pivot into other sectors, but there's got to be a bloody good reason for it. If your market that you're in now has a future, get deeper in that. Fire clients. That's what we should be doing. And I don't mean that in an aggressive way, but just choose not to work with it. It's very liberating. Who won't give you the time to do good work. Work with the clients who do give you time to do good work, who do give you a proper brief, who do take your advice, who do return your calls, who do give you feedback on candidates. And if they don't, coach them, counsel them. If they don't, just don't work with them. You don't want to allow COVID we should be working with less clients, providing better service, more qualified job briefs, and higher fees, or at least our same fees. So those are some of the things I would be doing. Watch out for zombie clients. Don't do a lot of business with clients who are themselves on shaky ground financially. Do your credit checks on people. Do your research. And if you've got 3 temps at a client and they don't pay for 2 weeks, get paid or pull them out. Don't get, because a permanent placement that's not paid is a bad thing. A temp fee that's not paid is a catastrophe, because you've paid the temp and you have to by law, and you will want to pay that person. If you don't get paid, and if you've got 8 or 9 or 10 or 15 temps at a client, then it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we watch that. So these are some of the mistakes we could be making. Hiring the wrong people. I don't think we're very good in this industry at hiring in the first place, even pre-COVID. I think we made a lot of mistakes. We take shortcuts and we don't do our due diligence. I mean, I've had thousands of recruiters report to me in 40 years. And in the last 10 years, I've had 3 reference checks called. 3.
Wow.
And I'm not hard to find, I just don't understand it. Even the hiring of a senior director level person, somebody worked for me for 10 years. Nobody calls. Why wouldn't you call? Why wouldn't you say, not work for 10 years, unlikely to be negative, but I could say, hey, this is how you get the best out of this person. This is what, or whatever. But I think it's so I'm kind of being retrospective now, but it's just indicative of how slapdash our industry is about our own recruitment. And I've been guilty of it. But almost always come to regret it when I've done it rushed or not doing it properly. So I think we've got to work harder at hiring the right people, we've got to totally change our attitude to training and coaching people. We hire these people and we set them up to fail. Our view should be anyone we hire is going to work out, and we're going to do everything we can to train them, support them, coach them, everything. And if they don't work out, they're going to fail fast, because your other big mistake, which is not a new mistake, but it's one that is long-term mediocrity. The person who's there 18 months, never really builds, and then they resign and we go, wow, we lost $100,000 on that person. Why didn't we let them go? So let's make sure they succeed. But if they don't succeed, fail fast. And I don't mean hire and fire and be unfair. I mean, after you've done everything. But let's do that in the first 3 or 4 months. Let's not find out a year later, this person was never any good. It's crazy kind of work, and that costs us a fortune.
And we want to end on a positive. So the 3 silver linings out of COVID, because perversely for me, in my business, it didn't feel like it a year ago, one of the best things that's ever happened to us at Ruella James. It's made us really look at ourselves, and we have changed so much. And thankfully, we tick a lot of the boxes in terms of the things that you've talked about today. But what are the three learns that we should be? The 3 learns we should all be benefiting from here?
There have been good things. I mean, I think a lot of people in our industry have behaved really well. A lot have behaved badly, but we're not focusing on that. They've behaved really well. They've protected their staff. They've shared. The industry's been very collaborative in some ways. And certainly in Australia it has. So I think that's been
certainly good.
I think that, I think it's brought the industry together, and we've grown up a bit, and we've realized that it's not the other agency that's the competition. It's actually the client who really would like to recruit direct. So let's just get better at that. I think it's been a chance to really look at our processes, our assumptions and paradigms about the world, as you're saying you've done in your business. And a lot of people are much more nimble, leaner, more efficient, and people are grateful to be in this industry still. And I think some of the hard edges have been softened about the way we are with each other. So I think that's been very, very good. I think clients have learned some lessons too. And I think one of the best things that's going to come out of this is, I talk about relationship building. I talk about selling retainers. Well, plenty of my clients are getting that kind of buy-in from their clients,
absolutely.
Right? And clients are looking for better service and better relationships. They don't want that transactional mud against the wall. They don't want to go back there. So COVID shined a light on that and said, it's crap, let's do it another way. So we have a wonderful opportunity then to make it a more consultative, professional, meaningful relationship, and therefore career. So I think that's been very good. And I think we're going to need to learn, if we haven't already, that we have to improve our service to candidates, which is a long-held thing we should have been doing. And I think we're going to be in for, we're going to need some shocks about candidates, the way they're going to treat us.
You've written about it today, haven't you?
I have spoken about it, and I think it's happening a bit. So I think, and I'm not ever celebrating anyone losing their job or companies go under, but it is true that the better companies have survived, the better recruiters are still here, and so we have a great platform to build from.
Exciting
I
times.
Not celebrate. Yeah, I don't celebrate, and I think my final message, to all of you in the UK is that we're ahead of you in terms of coming out of lockdown. It has picked up. Our unemployment is back to where it was. Our unemployment level is back to where it was prior to COVID, which is wonderful. There's lots of opportunities. We're growing. And, it's already happening in the UK, but the sun will shine on recruitment again. We will, it's an exciting time. Learn your lessons, refine, but just make sure you come out of COVID with the view that you're going to be a 3 times better recruiter. That's the thing that you can look back and say, was it worth it? It'll only ever be worth it if we're a better recruiter with better relationships and better skills. And that's got to be the goal. Don't come out and go exactly back to where you were in December 2019. That would be a disaster.
Greg, thank you so much for all of your insights. And I want to thank you on behalf of the UK as well for I have listened to you every week. I have read every blog. I have interacted with you on social media, and it's just been a real pleasure talking to you. But your contribution to our sector is, I'm sure we're all so appreciative of everything that you've done. And thank you for being my first guest on my podcast. I'll know not to sit in this room. The sun is shining on me massively. We're in for some wonderful weather over the next few days. But thank you so much. I so appreciate your time.
Look, it's an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on your podcast. And I'm very appreciative of the way that you dummied up a spotlight there to try and fool me into thinking the sun ever shines in England. I've been there and it doesn't.
It's shining today.
See ya.
Thank goodness. Take care. Thank you. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Ruella Talks Recruitment. Please do leave us a review with your thoughts. If you'd like to be advised of future episodes, please hit subscribe. Thank you.